Are you sure you want to go live? Yes, continue. I'm going. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session of Voices of Healthcare Cloud. We have a great session for you today with Aruna, who is going to be talking to us about firepower. But before we start, I want to go through a couple of housekeeping items. We really want to encourage all of you to ask questions. We're so excited that you have been attending these sessions with us, but we want to know who you are, where you're calling from, and all of these questions will be moderated. I am joined by my team, Josh and Basu, that'll help with moderation of those questions. And so we will send them live once we've kind of read through them. After the webcast is over, we will be posting the recording on the HLS blog. So always check out that link after the fact so we can share those with others. So how to engage. Up in the corner, you will see a little question mark. Right next to the leave button, don't hit leave, hit the question mark so you can see the chat panel open up. Once you see the chat panel, we definitely want you to engage in the conversation. We have people already giving us a shout out. We've got someone from Germany joining us. Awesome. San Francisco, North Carolina, Minnesota. We're so excited to see you all here today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and go on to the presentation. As mentioned, we have Aruna here with us today presenting on firepower. She is going to show how data interoperability in healthcare via FHIR, fast healthcare interoperability resources, can be leveraged by our Power platform. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and let Aruna give an introduction and take it away.
Thank you, Shelley. I'm Aruna Ranganathan, and I'm a cloud solution architect in Microsoft. I'm focused on data and AI, but also specialized on FHIR. And I've been in the industry for around 20 years with various industry verticals and technologies. So today, the focus is going to be FHIR and Power Apps. So let's just jump in straight away and let's look at why are we here and what are the challenges we have in the healthcare industry and how can we solve that? So healthcare companies in US face many challenges, which most of you are aware of, and they need help with their patients, practitioners, coordinated healthcare, and secure data. So they need their practitioners to help their practitioners to work efficiently so that they can compete for the best providers and avoid the burnout. They also need great patient experience in order to win their patient loyalty and thrive as an organization, something that gets harder over time because the expectations around the service and the convenience continues to rise. So to do this, they badly want and need to make the promise of coordinated care a reality, to allow the health records to be easily accessed and shared across the healthcare teams, both internally and externally within the organization. So now, of course, they have to do all of this while keeping their highly sensitive patient data completely secure. And as though this is not enough, they now have to comply with the new interoperability requirement. So why do they have to comply with the new interoperability requirement? Because in 2016, the Congress has passed a 21st Century Cures Act, providing, among many other things, a mandate to end the cycle of patient data being trapped in silos, virtually impossible to share and keeping the dream of the coordinated care out of reach. So you all probably are aware of going to the physicians and hospitals, getting your labs done, or going to the insurance, calling the insurance. All of this data are siloed. And if you have multiple hospital systems like I do and multiple physicians, it's really not in one place. So that is really hard for a patient like me to get all of this together and get one view of the data. So think about if the patient data is connected through interoperability. So with the Cures Act came the declaration that US patients should now own their health records, and the healthcare industry must make the patient data interoperable so that the collaborative and coordinated care among your doctors and pharmacists and ER nurse and specialists, basically everyone involved in your healthcare, can see all of the data and the whole coordinated care becomes a reality. And now the ONC and CMS proposed rules that define terms of compliance and implementation of that information in the 21st Century Cures Act, as well as ensuring that the patients are now able to access the healthcare information and all the healthcare insurers. So think about this being a reality where as a patient, I can access all my information in all of these silos into one place. So how can we reimagine the US healthcare challenges? So we saw the interoperability as a last circle on the right. So think about the interoperability being the key here. So the reality, the stakes of US healthcare is very high. But then the reality, though, is that in this moment, this is a tremendous opportunity for the healthcare industry. But why, right? Because this new problem of interoperability, if done the right way, doesn't need to be a problem eventually. In fact, it can be the key to improving each of these other challenges that follows the circles here. So Microsoft has partnered with the industry leaders to develop a platform and a suite of solutions that specifically help the US healthcare organizations not only comply with these new interoperability standards, but to thrive in the world where the healthcare records can be more easily accessed, harnessing that data to improve the organization and also in turn help improve the patient care. To create the efficiency for practitioners and the organization by improving their operational outcomes, and then to improve the patient experience by enabling a truly personalized care. Then to make the coordinated care a reality, but by empowering the care teams with the right tools. And then on top of it, to keep the patient information secure by using the right technologies throughout the organization. So that's where FHIR comes into the picture. So the introduction of HL7, if you all heard about it, the Health Level 7 International FAST Healthcare Interoperability Resources Specification provides a better and more reliable interoperability path. The specification defines an ontology of health data that is durable across systems, including entities, also known as resources. You'll hear the term entities or resources in the FHIR standard, which are basically a key concepts such as patient or a provider or a observation, medication, and so on. So 13 of those kind of resource definitions have been validated by the industry and made it as a normative in the latest R4 release of the FHIR specification. And then, of course, over 100 additional resource definitions are at various stages of maturity. So the FHIR is widely perceived as the key to the future of interoperable health data in the industry. FHIR, even though it's built on the previous formats like HL7, it is easier to implement because it uses the modern web-based suite of API technology. So Microsoft is introducing a set of healthcare APIs to enable the modern healthcare solutions in the cloud. These APIs enable the healthcare organizations to unlock the power of health data so that the systems can interoperable with each other and the data can be used in new ways that was not possible earlier. So Microsoft is adopting the industry standard technical specification like FHIR to power this interoperability across multiple health systems and vendors. The first of our past offerings is the Azure API for FHIR, making it easier for developers to leverage a single, consistent, secure way of ingesting and data management and extending the health data and the PHI in the cloud and connecting multiple disparate systems. Azure API for FHIR will be followed by the other APIs if you have heard about DICOM, which is in the preview right now. So Azure API for FHIR ingests, normalizes, secures, validates if it's a FHIR standard, and stores the data with auditing and access controls. The data can be easily connected together and then shared. FHIR ensures that the data is in the same format and uses unique identifiers to connect it to the related patient data, so it is organized into structured data points. So we looked at FHIR and API for FHIR. Let's quickly look at Power Apps, and then how do we bring the FHIR and Power Apps together? Microsoft Power Platform bundles together its low-code, no-code tools as part of the business applications framework. Applications can be built by anyone, from business users to professional developers, mixing the skills of those who need the apps with those who can build and maintain them. Microsoft Power Apps lets non-coders build business apps for any device while seamlessly working with your Azure-based services through rich extensibility model without knowing languages like C#. An app allows a designer to create this app by just dragging elements onto your canvas and integrating data from multiple sources, such as Azure API for FHIR, SQL databases, and even many non-Microsoft sources. You can also choose the layout as the user needs, whether it's for a web or a mobile, and so on. So Power Apps plus Azure provides the deeply integrated low code, but also provides the pro dev application development environment that allows organizations to meet the demands faster, reduce the cost if you already have investments in Power Platform, app management, and the integration out of the box connectors, which we are focusing on today. So the low code is only a part of Power Apps and Power Platform story. The ability of Power Platform to integrate with professional developer tools like Azure and Visual Studio are equally important. To continue to accelerate the growing trend of low code and code first fusion projects, we have made significant improvements over the last 18 months in making Power Platform, Azure, Visual Studio all work seamlessly together. This allows the professional developers to effortlessly mix and match the low-code platforms like Power Apps with the code-first capabilities like API management and others. Solutions that blend low-code and code-first platforms empower developers to solve digital problems quickly and with their preferred languages and tools in their development environment. So for this session, we are focusing on the Power Platform, the low code, the Power Apps and Power Automate on the top section, and the Azure API for FHIR in the Azure services, which basically uses Cosmos DB in the backend. So what are FHIR connectors? Think of connector as a proxy or a wrapper around the Azure API for FHIR that allows the underlying service to talk to the Power Platform. So the connectors basically provides a way for users to leverage the set of built-in functions and triggers to build the applications and workflows. So to give you an example, Azure API for FHIR has a storage, and it could store lots and lots of resources, right? Like every FHIR standard resources could be stored. But to make the citizens developers' life easier, the proxy could have a set of actions and triggers. So when the citizen developer uses these Power Apps and Power Automate, it's easier for them to build applications and workflows. The connectors each works with not only Azure API for FHIR, but also the open source FHIR if someone is interested in that. The connectors contain a subset of FHIR resources. So because the Azure API for FHIR have a capability to have all of the resources when writing a connector, the connector is focused on a subset of FHIR resources. They're also bidirectional, which means you can read and write to and from the FHIR service. Currently, there are 2 connectors that are certified. We'll look at it in a bit. And these connectors are certified for the Power Apps and Power Automate, but Logic Apps is kind of in the roadmap. So FHIR enables a robust extensible data model with standardized semantics and data exchange that enables all the systems using FHIR to work together. So by creating those low to no code connectors for FHIR, we are opening up the FHIR to citizen developers and frontline workers, enabling them to create these solutions that meet their needs in real time. So here are the two connectors I mentioned earlier. The FHIR Base and FHIR Clinical are two certified connectors that if you have a Power Platform, you should be able to look up and start using. But these two connectors, like I mentioned, are limited to the essential FHIR resources. So even though you are seeing these box of resources here, not all of the resources or all of the attributes of the resources are covered in the FHIR Base and FHIR Clinical connectors. So what do you do if you want those, right? That's when the custom connectors come into the picture. So the custom connector is anyone who has the right access to your Power Platform environment can create a custom connector very easily. So I'll also show that in our demo. And here's a link of the resource list. This takes you to the hl7.org/FHIR, which is the standard showing the FHIR resource list for the FHIR Base and FHIR Clinical. Okay, let me jump into the demo while I switch my screen.
Yeah, great job, Aruna. We still have a lot of people on. No questions yet. I think everybody is anxiously awaiting some of the use cases and demos. So excited to see what you have to share.
Great, thank you. So here's my Power Platform environment. Let me see if I can get this out of the way. So I have a whole bunch of apps. So I have some open for you all. Here is an example of a Practitioner Portal. So this is from the practitioner view. Again, before I go into these demos, the Power Apps has a lot of functionality and a lot of capabilities. The examples I'm showing here only touches a handful of those functionality. So if you have great ideas, feel free to play with it, explore it. These are just some examples. So the Practitioner Portal is, let's say, assume that I am a Dr. Smith coming into my work. I have this in my iPad. I could take this around and this data is live connected to the FHIR environment to do read and write. So as soon as he comes to the portal, he has these notifications that are immediate action needs to be taken by the doctor. So either he has an upcoming appointment where he can click on it and take it to the right screen to get details on the patient, Ben Johnson. He could also look at the lab results for Mona that he needs to review. He could also do medication requests that are due and he needs to send it to the pharmacy. So when he clicks on these buttons, it will take to the right screen where he could do that. Again, like I said, these are very few examples. There are lots of FHIR resources that could be customized for the view. Again, he has this menu bar where he can click and look at all of his patients, and he could quickly click on each of these icons to look at his observations, encounters, medications, and appointments for each of these patients. And like I said, each of these are live connected to FHIR, and very quickly he should be able to pull this information and get to those details. And he has also more information on the screen where he could click on the lab results, get some information on the specific patient, Kate, and if he's going to see that patient right away. So that's a very quick example from the practitioner point of view. So here's another example from the patient point of view. So if I'm a patient, I want one view where I could click any buttons I want and get to all the information. We saw in the slide deck where there's a lot of these stuff that are siloed. Like if I go to a lab cart, the lab is siloed versus billing is siloed. How do I do an appointment? How do I get to my medications? So this is kind of an example portal that lets you do everything in one place. Again, all of these are connected to your FHIR resources and back to your EMR or HR if you have one. So if we look at an example, I come here, I'm Peter, I want to schedule an appointment, right? I can pick my practitioner. I could say what date works for me. I could pick 10th, 10 o'clock slot sounds good. Let me go pick some. Let's go to general practice. I want to pick the time. Again, all of this data is again coming from your Epic or Cerner or whatever EHR you have. And the point of the FHIR apps is to show you that how easily you could pull this all together and in your fingertips. Again, so the data comes in, I got an email in my inbox that says confirmation email has been sent. Great. So this status says proposed in my FHIR. So what happens is, even if as me, patient, I send this, it's proposed, I got an email, but I can wait for my email once I get a confirmation from the clinician. So if I go to the clinician point of view, and here I act as a clinician, and I come here and I want to see what appointments do I need to book. So here I can see that, okay, this is a proposed for patient Peter, for the practitioner Thomas, and either I can accept, I could decline, or I could say I'm going to put it in a pending state because I see 3 of them needing the same appointment date. So when the status gets updated, my shift is done, I go home. When the next clinician comes back, this is all updated in the FHIR. So when they pull the app, they should be able to either accept them, decline them, and whichever they do, there's going to be an email sent to the patient Peter saying either it's confirmed or declined or pending in this, which means either they are waiting to hear back within the 24 hours. So that's kind of like a patient point of view and then a clinician point of view talking to each other. Here's another very different example of Power Apps where, again, this is focused for mobile friendly, have it in your iPad, walk around to your patient's room, and I have the patient information here, but I also have all the information in my fingertips. I could quickly say this is great, but I'm going to look at, okay, when was the last time this patient was an emergency or home health? Looks like the patient is back again. What's going on? Maybe I want to look at, is there anything that stands out that's repeating with this patient? So I can click on all of these. I can also quickly pull out a dashboard, which is showing an example of a Power BI dashboard embedded within your Power Apps and very interactable, in this case, physician Adam Hopkins can say, okay, how does it look? What should I filter? Or looks like it's severity, but then what is causing this and so on. So that's kind of an example of embedding different technologies. But also I could go and say, in this example, if you we tested this for a customer for HoloLens, right? So if you have a HoloLens or you have some kind of a video during your virtual visit or something that could be also embedded into Power Apps where the physician can quickly pull and say, let me watch this quickly, what's going on, or is there any pictures that are attached to it where here's an example of the picture that could be embedded and so on. So it kind of shows you the different technologies that can come into the picture to make this physicians work efficiently and also in turn reduce the costs. So let's go maybe peel a layer on all of these demos. We looked at practitioner, we looked at a couple of patients, we looked at a clinician point of view, we looked at again another physician, but more showing all the latest technologies. So if you want to go, this is the edit mode of the app. So I'm trying to go a little bit technical here, unwrapping the layers of how these were built. Right, just to show how quickly you could just drag and drop. So this is the patient practitioner portal I showed earlier. These are all very quick buttons where the data is added. And if the data is all coming from FHIR, and if you look at the data, these are the 2 FHIR connectors I was talking about, the FHIR base and FHIR clinical. It's as simple as adding these 2 connections and then using those connections to get the data for patient, practitioner, encounter, and so on. So basically loading all that data here. And then if you go back to looking, it's a set of screens that are created with all these gallery and view. So it's pretty straightforward and quick to create these Power Apps. But to take a step back, if anyone is interested to do this on your either for your customers or you are the customer, here are a couple of GitHubs. These are also part of the deck that will be provided. So 2 of these GitHubs. So usually the question comes as to, okay, these Power Apps are good. How long does it take? What all does it get? What all is involved to get this, right? So the first step is you need to have the FHIR, basically. You need to deploy the FHIR and have some data loaded into the FHIR. So this GitHub OpenHack FHIR has a lot more than just doing the FHIR. But the challenge one, the reason I'm pointing to this GitHub is it has very specific, detailed step-by-step instructions to deploy the FHIR and load data into FHIR. So if you're interested, this would be the first step. Finish challenge 1. In this case, synthetic data just to have some data in your FHIR. You could also push your own data. And once you have the FHIR up and running, you come to this Firepower GitHub. Again, it has very detailed step-by-step instructions on how do you basically get this app. The entire app is exported and imported into this GitHub. So all you have to is follow these instructions, get the Azure API for FHIR deployed, and follow the instructions to get the connector, and the Power Apps code is embedded in this project. You could just import it into your FHIR environment, and it has, like I said, let's pick one of these. It walks you through detailed steps with pictures. How do you get one of these sample apps? So one last thing, we looked at all of these apps. We looked at the edit mode of the apps. So I also mentioned about connectors, the 2 different kind of connectors, certified connectors and custom connectors. So when I go into my data and if I look at connections and I click add new, I search for FHIR. These 2 connectors are the ones I was talking about, Firebase and FHIR Clinical. But let's say I want to create my custom connector. So what does that mean, right? So right here, you go to your custom connector. So once it comes, you click on a new custom connector. And let's pick this. And you put in your FHIR URL. So this is the FHIR URL that you deployed using this GitHub. And then you click next and you provide this information, again coming from developing the deploying the FHIR. And then you go into the definition. And this is already created, but it looks complex. If you go to the Swagger editor, you basically have the code. So you go to this GitHub and put my entire FHIR URL and I generate a Swagger. So what this gives is it gives the metadata of my FHIR server. So all I have to do is copy this and come back here into my Swagger editor, paste it. So of course, if one caveat is the size of the Swagger file, it cannot be only 1 meg. So there's some tweaks that needs to do, which is kind of like combine all the definitions into sections. So the size of the file is smaller. Again, if you go back to this one, this GitHub talks about the custom connector and step-by-step how to create it. So even if you have to create a custom connector and these 2 connectors are not, it's not hard. So it's just a quick overview of how quickly you could build your own connectors and connect to your FHIR and create these apps from scratch. That's all I have. Any questions, everyone?
Hey, Aruna, we did have some questions on how to get started with these apps, but you pointed everyone to there. And so for those of you in the audience who are asking, we will make sure to post the links to the GitHubs that Aruna covered and make sure you can find those to get access to these so you can get started too.
Great. And if you have any questions while you're in this, just post an issue and someone will get back, or you can always get back to this channel or to Shelly.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see if we have any other questions coming in.
Hey, Shelly, Aruna, can you comment on licensing involved, just in spirit of covering the topic of how do you get started?
Yes,
so what
so
can an organization have in order to start building this?
great. I'll cover the Azure side, probably like either Shelly or Vasu could cover the Power Platform.
Sure.
So the FHIR itself, if you have Azure API for FHIR, all you can is just look up and deploy Azure API for FHIR. So when you because Azure is pay as you go, when you deploy Azure API for FHIR, it has a cost to it that the caveat is Azure API for FHIR cannot be stopped, but it's not one of those very expensive ones. It just is live. The cost comes when you read and write into Azure API for FHIR. So if you're nonstop streaming data into FHIR, let's say from your EMR, and then you also have users nonstop reading from FHIR, so that's where the ingress and post egress cost will come in. And then, of course, the blob storage is very low. We're not using Gen 2, it's just the blob storage, and the function, again, depends on the read and write. So it's more not the licensing, it's more the cost of usage from the Azure side.
Got it.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
then also on the Power App side, the Firebase and FHIR Clinical connectors, I believe, are premium connectors. So
yes,
either the Power Apps license per user or per app license for whoever's developing these or using these would be needed in a production environment.
Got it. Thank you both.
Yep. And one more thing to add in the Azure API for FHIR world, if you're all new to FHIR, it's a little bit confusing in the sense that there are three different ways you could deploy FHIR. One is Azure API for FHIR. So you go to the portal, Azure portal, and say Azure API for FHIR, then you deploy the FHIR. The second one is you could use the open source version of FHIR using the GitHub and create your own environment in your own VM or on-prem. So that's your Azure API for FHIR, but you have also healthcare APIs workspace. This is in preview. So this workspace is basically a framework of all the healthcare APIs that would be eventually here. So earlier in the slide, I mentioned Azure API for FHIR is the first API Microsoft has in the healthcare side. We also have DICOM and IoT and so on. So this is in the preview product, but eventually all of this will be inside this workspace. So that's kind of a difference. The FHIR service itself is the same. It's just it is going to go into the workspace eventually. And from the Power Platform point of view, I only cover the Power Apps. It's exactly the same way you read and write from FHIR from the Power Automate.
This is great information, Aruna. We really appreciate your time in going through this. You're absolutely an expert here and really know your stuff. I think that covers most of the questions that we're seeing from the audience. Any last things to share?
No, I think I've covered. The resources are part of the PowerPoint. So I think that should give them all way to access these, all the connectors and the GitHubs that are shared.
Awesome. Well, we will be sure to post all of those once the recording has processed. So I am just going to take over your screen share really quick.
Great.
And just kind of wrap up for everybody. We really appreciate everyone who attended our session today. We are excited to be able to share all of these great solutions with our audience. We do have some upcoming sessions. So next week, we're going to have Ellery Rose on talking about physician referral and relationship management. So a little bit change of pace from Power Apps and FHIR today, but how can we manage those physician referrals? And then the following week, we'll have Matt Anderson talking about how to automate patient referrals. And then for our last session in November, we'll have someone on talking about data-driven patient engagement. The final week of November, we are going to take a break that week. We know a lot of people will be out celebrating Thanksgiving with family. So please check back in December. We will pick up a few sessions that week. And for those of you, if you are interested, we do have a sign-up link if you want to get these direct invites to your Outlook calendar. Check out the form that we posted in the chat and just put your email in there and we'll make sure to get your name added to the invite list. And then finally, for our session next week, our blog went live and you can grab the join link and share that out with folk as well for the one that Ellery is hosting next week on November 3rd. With that, we really do appreciate all of you for joining us today and hope to see you on future sessions. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank you all.